In the headlines, President Buhari kicks off oil drilling in northern Nigeria as Bauchi and Gombe residents demand for jobs and clean environment. PDP and Labour Party presidential candidates pledge to implement can demand lists if elected into office. President Muhammadu Buhari to unveil new naira notes on Wednesday. And on the foreign scene, IMF and South Sudan sign agreement for $112.7 million in emergency funds as two-thirds of South Sudan's population may face severe food shortages in 2023. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Update. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Hello and welcome once again. President Muhammadu Buhari has commissioned the Kolmani River 2 oil field at the boundary communities of Barambu in Bauchi and Gombe states. Buhari, accompanied by Bauchi State Governor Bala Muhammad, arrived Barambu village, Al-Galiri local government area, and was driven in a convoy to the Kolmani River 2 oil field project site in a heavily guarded motorcade as he waved to locals who defied the scorching sun to welcome him. Governors, ministers, officials and dignitaries were on ground to receive the president for the epoch-making ceremony. President Buhari said there are more oil discoveries ongoing in the Anambra Basin, Lower Benue Trough and other areas in the country. Buhari said the Kolmani project has attracted over $3 billion in investment so far. Buhari is glad that this discovery had emanated from his charge to the NMPC to re-strategize and expand its oil and gas exploration footprints to the frontier basins of Anambra, Dahomey, Sokoto, Benue Trough, Chad and Bidda basins. He said similar activities across the other basins are currently actively ongoing. Other dignitaries include the Senate President Ahmad Lawan, the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, captains of industry as well as politicians within Bauchi and Gombe states in the country. And to politics now, where the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, has promised to enhance trade and commerce in Gombe State if elected president in the 2023 general elections. The presidential candidate made the promise during the flag-off of the PDP presidential campaign in Gombe State on Monday. Ibrahim Ismail reports.
The former vice president was received by a crowd of supporters and PDP stalwarts in Gombe State, including former Governor Ibrahim Dankombo, the PDP governorship candidate Muhammad Jibrin Barde, and governorship aspirants of the party. Addressing supporters at the Pantami Stadium, the Wazirin Adamawa said his party, PDP, will launch massive infrastructure projects to transform Gombe State.
All the roads linking Gombe with Adamawa, with Borno, with Bauchi, with Yobe, all these roads are reconstructed for the purposes of enhancing trade and commerce. Many of you, or most of you, were not born when the late Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was in office. You now have another opportunity to produce another Abubakar Tafawa Balewa in me.
PDP National Chairman Yocha Ayu said the party will ensure food security and availability if elected into office.
I will want to assure you that when we win power, everything of hunger will be abolished. There will be no more insecurity. You will see prosperity. The young people will have jobs. Everything will come back to normal. PDP!
Earlier, former governor of Gombe, Ibrahim Hassan Dankombo, and the PDP governorship candidate, Muhammad Jibrin Barde, promised to work for the success of the party's candidates at all levels.
Gombe Pasache.
I want to assure them that Gombe is for Atiku and the PDP. Gombe people said I should tell him that they will vote for PDP. We would give you our votes in Gombe. PDP will return to power. Gombe State has been under the leadership of the PDP for 16 years before the ruling All Progressives Congress APC took the mantle of leadership in 2019. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
And still talking politics, the Abia State chapter of the People's Democratic Party says it has concluded plans to begin its 2023 campaign in readiness to battle other political parties in the state. Briefing newsmen at the party secretariat on Tuesday, the Abia PDP vice chairman and acting state publicity secretary Abraham Ama said the inauguration ceremony was significant because it would provide an opportunity for the PDP-led government of Abia State to showcase its first 11 and the finest gentlemen it has assembled for the 2023 polls. The party advised all PDP faithful to eschew politics of rancor, hatred, bitterness and mudslinging, just to teach the opposition that politics for the party is not a do-or-die affair. Meanwhile, ahead of the 2023 elections, journalists have been trained on fact-checking and safety to enable them carry out their traditional role of holding government to account. Stakeholders at a one-day capacity building for journalists re-echoed the need for journalists to provide citizens with accurate information that may influence decisions and governance. Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, in partnership with the Center for Journalism Innovation and Development, emphasized the importance of democracy-journalism interface.
Democracy is not a true democracy without a free press and free media. And the media, again, needs to be enabled to fulfill their mandate. Now, with the general elections ahead, these are very critical elections. I'm convinced they will determine the future of this beautiful country of Nigeria. So enabling journalists is, of course, going to enable them to cover better the elections. And we know how turbulent it can be around elections. So this is, again, very crucial.
Well, we are at the threshold of an election come February next year. And it's important to remind ourselves, journalists, how our job, how important it is for the realization of a very redoubtable, formidable democracy. Elections are very critical to the realization of democratic process. So we're here to talk about how we can do better reporting, how we can keep safe as journalists, and how we can help to detect both misinformation and disinformation in the process, which can then obscure, if you like, the whole messaging as important for voters and citizens.
Meanwhile, journalists say this workshop will help them report elections objectively, adhering to the watchdog agenda setting and gatekeeping role.
I really enjoyed, the workshop. It's an eye-opener, and it has also helped me to know that as a journalist, there are ways I can walk around those hurdles that we have, and that if one tries hard enough, you can actually, put the public interest first and do the right thing.
The program today is actually teaching us on a number of things on how to protect and keep ourselves safe during the election, basically. We've learned on how to control some of the information that we get from fake news, misinformation, malinformation, all kinds of things. So basically it's just getting your news straight and getting your facts right during the electioneering period.
And still talking politics, People's Democratic Party and Labour Party presidential candidates Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi on Tuesday pledged commitment to implement a list of demands proposed by the Christian Association of Nigeria, anchored on restructuring and constitutional reforms. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman reports that SDP presidential candidate Adewale Adebayo also appeared before the Christian body to unveil his agenda for the country. The report.
Christian Association of Nigeria (CAN) had last week presented its demands to the APC and Action Alliance presidential candidates Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Major Hamza Al-Mustapha, retired. It is the turn of PDP, SDP and Labour Party presidential candidates. Responding to the demands, Atiku Abubakar says it is consistent with his covenant with Nigerians, pledging to implement them if he becomes Nigeria's president.
What you have presented to us is what I have always believed in. And if I have the opportunity, I swear to God I will do it.
Speaking on the same platform, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, who provided his basis for adopting the charter, assures the Christian community of his commitment to its implementation.
What we need now is implementation of it. And I is committed to implementation of it. I'm not going to give a excuse.
Presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Adewale Adebayo, went memory lane on the reasons behind the creation of the religious body, which he says was to emancipate the citizens across religious divides.
Khan was a defender of truth and justice. Whoever is at the receiving end. And we want that Khan, that when Khan will speak, it is not only Christians who will be listening.
As a build-up to the 2023 elections, various interest and professional groups are engaging the presidential candidates in an effort to engender issue-based conversations that will shape the electoral outcome. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now to legislative matters, where the Senate has summoned the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, to explain an allocation of 206 billion naira inserted into the 2023 budget of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. The Senate, through its Committee on Special Duties, asked the minister to appear before it with details and plans for the allocation made despite the country's dwindling revenue and struggling economy. The report.
The resolution to invite the Minister of Finance was made during the budget defense session of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. This comes as the minister in charge of the ministry, Sadiya Farouk, was unable to provide details of the proposed allocation of 206 billion naira in our ministry's proposed budget for the year 2023. A member of the panel, Elisha Abo, representing Abia State, recalled how the committee had to summon the Minister of Finance during budget defense by the Ministry of Health and the Primary Health Care. Similar issue, he noted, has come up with the Humanitarian Ministry. He wondered if the 206 billion naira is captured in the medium-term expenditure framework.
We observed 301 billion naira was inserted in the budget for 2023, which will be funded through multilateral and bilateral loans. And we asked the Honorable Minister to give us the details of the activities and the projects that will be implemented with this money.
A Minister of Humanitarian Affairs accused the Ministry of Finance of inserting into her ministry's 2023 budget without her knowledge.
For the 2022, which was not released, and we said part of it is for the NAF's budget and part for the NDC. The money was not released, and now we have seen it occurring by almost tenfold, and we're going to also clarify from the Federal Ministry of Finance.
The Minister of Finance should appear before this committee to furnish this committee with the full details of what they intend to do with 206 billion naira in 2023 budget.
The chairman of the committee, Yusuf, thereafter moved a motion to summon the finance minister to give an explanation about the 206 billion naira inserted in the budget.
We will ask Minister of Finance, to come and give us, proper explanation of that bilateral, engagement, the increase and the non-release, in 2022. Probably we'll fix a date, where we may invite her and then you as well, if there's a need to do that.
No date was given for her to appear before the committee.
The federal government has concluded investigations on the Kuje Medium Custodial Center jailbreak by Boko Haram insurgents on July 5th, 2022. Briefing journalists at Radio House on Tuesday in Abuja while presenting his ministry's scorecard, the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, said the investigation remained a security document that cannot be discussed in the open. He said some of the escapees from the facility have been recaptured, while a lot of them are still at large. The attacks by the insurgents led to the escape of over 600 inmates, including members of the terror group. Aregbesola said the greatest legacy of the Buhari administration was the ability of the government to push Boko Haram insurgents out of all the local governments they occupied in 2015. Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and Canadian Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland have agreed to deepen relations between their countries in a bid to improve trade, widen educational collaboration, and continue dialogue on the global energy transition issues and climate change. Both leaders met in Ottawa, the Canadian capital, on Monday, comparing exchange notes on some economic challenges in their countries, including fiscal and monetary difficulties, subsidies, financial inclusion, social investment programs, and strategies to support the vulnerable. The Nigerian Vice President reaffirmed the country's strategy of using gas as a transition fuel, a notion he said garnered traction at the recent COP27 conference in Egypt. Using gas as a transitional fuel is still widely unacknowledged in the West, but Vice President Osinbajo said Nigeria is determined to pursue the path in light of the fact that it has huge gas reserves. Beyond gas, the Nigerian government's energy transition plan is focused on renewable energy, including the ongoing Solar Power Niger program, which was launched under its Economic Sustainability Plan. The Canadian Deputy Prime Minister, who is also the nation's finance minister, agreed that the use of natural gas makes sense and expressed readiness to keep discussing with Nigeria to get financing for gas projects. You're watching Trust TV News Update, and still ahead, we'll tell you the story of a Zaria river that consumes lives annually. Details of this and more after the break. You stay with us.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us on Trust TV News Update. Now let's recap our top stories. President Buhari kicks off oil drilling in northern Nigeria as Bauchi and Gombe residents demand jobs and clean environment. And PDP and Labour Party presidential candidates pledge to implement can demand list if elected into office. And moving on to other news now, the federal government says it will soon lift more COVID-19 restrictions to relieve Nigerians, especially travelers, of some stress. The National Coordinator and Technical Head Presidential Steering Committee, PSC, on COVID-19, Mukhtar Mohammed, disclosed this on Tuesday. He said even though the world is moving away from COVID-19, it is only proper that relaxation of the restrictions are done gradually without a rush to avoid mistakes. The PSC member also said hospitalization and mortality rate have gone down, but the risk of contracting COVID-19 is still there. hence the need not to be in a rush with the lifting of restrictions on complaints by international travelers at airports. Mukhtar said it is in the best interest of everyone to complete the health declaration form, adding that it is done to protect people and their families. River Galma, properly known in Zaria as the River of Death, has claimed 8 lives of mostly children this year. Residents say innocent people are drowned on an annual basis. The river, which runs through Zaria city from Shika to Kofargayam, is mostly feared by residents, especially during the rainy season. The report.
2 teenagers were drowned in the river last October while swimming. The young men Zakaria Aliyu Yahya and Yusuf Abdullahi met their death at the Kofargaladima axis of river on Monday, October 31st. 9 young girls died in 2019 when their canoe capsized while crossing the river at the Hayin-Sarki Fito river bank in Wuchichiri district of Zaria local government area. After the incident, 8 bodies were recovered at Kaku village and another corpse discovered the following day at Garurubuchi, about 5 kilometers away from the scene of the incident. An unspecified number of persons were also reported dead when they were drowned in the river immediately after the death of the 9 girls some few months later. Abdullahi Gobdi Ayu is a Sarkin Kogi who lives in river with his family in a built house for over 50 years. He explained that a number of people, mostly children, have drowned in the river in the past years. He said in this year alone, 7 people have died, and he was the one who recovered their bodies and handed them over to their families.
Oh, the number of deaths are many. They cannot be counted. You know, during dry seasons, like children often come here to play and die. Recently, someone came here and died, and his relatives searched and searched for him. I told them not to worry, because the corpse will surface after 2 days and it will be seen, and so it happened.
Abdullahi, however, dismissed insinuation that the river has evil spirits that are also responsible for the frequent deaths, attributing drowning cases recorded annually to lack of swimming skills.
It is due to lack of swimming techniques and recklessness. On the side of the children, there are the 2 major reasons. The deaths include adult and even female.
Muhammad Mamman, a resident of Labadia Road in Tudunwada, Zaria, who lost 2 of his cousins in the river, said it is simply the will of God. Mamman, however, blamed the carelessness of the young children for the death in the river.
2 of my cousins were lost in the accident. I advise the parents that they should just be warning their children not to be going near the river for either washing of their clothes or bathing or all that.
Also speaking, the ward head of Line Labadia and Makarfi Road Tudunwada Zaria noted with dismay how young children were fond of going to the river even when it is in its fullest capacity. He cautioned children against swimming in the river when it reaches its fullest capacity, calling on the local authorities to monitor the river channel during rainy season to save lives.
The International Institute for Tropical Agriculture has advised African leaders to invest more in the agricultural sector to feed the continent and end the spate of hunger among the people. Director General of the Institute, Netaranya Sarginga, gave the advice while speaking at a media interaction held recently in Ibadan. Experts said over time, the agricultural sector in Africa is confronting challenges such as unimplemented policies, bad governance, lack of accountability, as well as debilitating institutions. They say this has reduced food production and increased the rate of hunger among 278 million people, representing 20% of the continent's population. To cushion the effect of the crisis, the Director General of the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture wants African leaders to invest in agriculture to feed Africans while focusing on exportation of farm produce to strengthen economies and provide jobs.
Ethiopia introduced wheat and decided to start producing wheat. In 5 years, next year, Ethiopia is going to start exporting wheat in 5 years, simply because the Prime Minister believes in agriculture. So for me, really the major constraint to agriculture transformation is leadership. I think I don't have any doubt in my mind. If cassava disappears and banana, what effect that will have on our population? So a template, and again, I would say, really, in terms of research, in terms of project development, in terms of technologies, in terms of frameworks, all those things we can provide, there is no problem with that. But I keep coming back to implementation and policies.
Now to matters of the economy, where the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, on Tuesday announced that President Muhammadu Buhari will unveil the new design for the 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes on Wednesday, November 23rd. Emefiele disclosed this during the Monetary Policy Committee meeting in Abuja. The CBN Governor further stated that the Apex Bank will not shift its deadline for all old notes to be returned to commercial banks in exchange for newly designed ones, adding that though the new designs will be unveiled, the 500 and 1,000 naira notes will be reduced from circulation.
Indeed, we are no longer waiting till December 15th to unveil and begin to release the new notes. By the special grace of God, tomorrow, which is the 23rd of November 2022, the President has graciously accepted to unveil the new currencies, and the new currencies will be unveiled tomorrow at the Federal Executive Chambers by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Nigerians want to carry 1,000 naira and 500 naira. And in fact, we are beginning to see or think that increasing the high denomination bills is also part of what may even be fueling inflation. So in fact, yes, we will launch 200, 500, 1,000. Over time, we will reduce the volume of 500 and 1,000 in circulation.
And now for a look at the foreign scene, where the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and South Sudan have reached a staff-level agreement for the release of about $112.7 million in emergency financing. The IMF, in a statement on Tuesday, said the emergency financing under the new food shock window will help South Sudan address food insecurity, support social spending, and boost international reserves. And in sports, a bold and brilliant Saudi Arabia pulled off one of the biggest shocks in World Cup history as they came from behind to stun two-time winners Argentina in a fantastic Group C opener in Lusail. Ranked 51st in the world, Saudi Arabia could have been done and dusted in the first half as Lionel Messi opened the scoring from the penalty spot before Argentina had 3 goals ruled out for offside. They face Mexico on Saturday, while Saudi Arabia take on Poland. And that wraps up Trust TV News Update for this hour. Don't forget, you can subscribe and follow us across all our social media platforms. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Thanks for watching.